Review Subcommittee on Human Services 21. So hope you people understand you're very special that you're on our agenda for today. So we look forward to hearing from you. Members were provided with a Zoom link to access the meeting remotely, and meeting materials were put online earlier this week and made available for downloading. At this time, we'll have the secretary call the roll. Members, you need to indicate whether you're present in person, remote from the district, or remote from office. Thank you.
Senator Rocky Adams, Senator Alvarado, Senator Berg.
Remote from the district.
Thank you, ma'am. Senator Carroll.
Present in the room.
Representative Bowling.
Here in the room.
Representative Frazier.
Present in the room.
Representative Gibbons-Prunty.
Present in the room.
Representative Sheldon.
Remote from the district.
Thank you, sir. Representative Weber.
Present in the room.
Representative Westrom.
Present in the room.
Representative Wilner.
Here in the room.
Senator McDaniel. Representative Petrie. Representative Reed. Representative Moser. Co-Chair Bentley. Chair Meredith.
Present in the room. Next, we have approval of the minutes from the October 6th meeting. Do I hear a motion? Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed vote no. Minutes are approved. Thank you. We have a very heavy agenda this morning, and this meeting will always precedes our Appropriation Revenue Committee meeting at 1 o'clock. So we're going to try to be out of here by 12:30. Give folks a chance, an opportunity for lunch before we go into that 1 o'clock meeting. So to that end, I'd ask our presenters, if you would, to limit your presentations to no more than 20 minutes, and that'll leave us a few minutes for questions and answers. With that, I just want to remind those participating remotely, please remember to mute your microphones. This morning we have a presentation from Mackenzie Longoria with the Alzheimer's Association regarding the status of services for individuals with dementia and funding for those services. Ms. Longoria, if you come forward and officially identify yourself for the record. I think you know the routine, probably more than anyone.
It's becoming a little too routine, I think. Good morning, everyone. I also will be much shorter than 20 minutes. I don't think I'll need that much time today. Senator Meredith, Chairman Meredith, members of the committee, thank you all so much for allowing me to have some time today. What I'm going to be talking about today, most of you already heard about and actually voted on last year. It's a bill that I worked on with Senator Alvarado, the Senate Bill 74, the Dementia Services Coordinator position. So I just want to give a little bit of background or a refresher on what that bill was and what it accomplished, and then, why I'm here today to get it sort of to the next step in the process that we are hoping for. So just as a brief reminder, Senate Bill 74 was geared towards doing some revamping and fixing up of an office that has been in existence in the state for more than 2 decades, but has not been staffed or funded. So there was an office that was created, the Office of Alzheimer's Disease and Related Disorders. It's a mouthful. It was created over 2 decades ago, again, as I stated, and there was a corresponding Alzheimer's Disease and Related Disorders Council, or just Ad Council. It's just much easier. So while that was great, good intentions, unfortunately, the office remained unfunded and without staffing for the entirety of this time period. So what I wanted to accomplish with Senator Alvarado was doing some cleanup on that office, changing things around a little bit, articulating some better duties about what we wanted this office and more specifically an individual to do, as well as making some changes to the makeup of the council and putting some mandatory updates in place for the state plan. So our concept was to create an Office of Dementia Services, and within that to have one person, sort of our Dementia Services Coordinator is what we sort of call this position. And it exists in 11 other states at this point, too. So that was sort of our background for how we approach this change to the office. So, again, a few changes to the office, changing the name, establishing more of this sort of staff position, doing some changes to the membership of the council, making sure that we had some more representatives from the long-term care industry. We noticed that there were some absences and gaps there, as well as a need for some more caregiver perspectives and some consumer advocate perspectives. So we added those as well. And then finally, it ensured some changes to the state plan. So almost all 50 states now are in a position where we all have state plans. And these are plans that are worked on within the state to sort of lay out what the roadmap is for that particular state to improve Alzheimer's and other dementia services and supports infrastructure, and sort of how can states get on the road to becoming a dementia-capable state. Kentucky enacted its first plan in 2009, which was great. And then they were able to do an update in 2017, mostly due to some grant funding that came in. However, that state plan ideally should be dealt through with the Office of Dementia Services and the staff that works in that office. But without staff, without a real functioning office, it has really fallen on the shoulders of the Department for Aging and Independent Living. And specifically, I must give credit to Marnie Mountjoy over at Dale, for she has really been keeping the state plan and any semblance of an active ad council alive, in addition to all of her other duties that she does over at Dale. So even though we have this state plan, nothing's really been done. There's no actions that have been taken on the recommendations. Nothing's been followed through on. And we didn't have anything in statute that mandated that the plan had to be updated every few years. So that's really just some background on what Senate Bill 74 sought to achieve. And what I also wanted to do then is just provide a little bit of reasoning behind why this position is so necessary before I sort of make my case for why it needs to be funded indefinitely. Realistically, the reason this position is so needed is because, as with many states, in Kentucky, it's a very fragmented system of care. So we lack a lot of coordination amongst agencies, and then, public sector consumer advocacy groups that provide caregiving services like us and AARP, our AAAs. It's all sort of very scattered. The lack of a sort of point person in state government to oversee dementia services and supports can really help our caregivers, of which there are about 200,000, if not more, here in Kentucky alone. It can really help these individuals navigate the care process better, which means better care outcomes for individuals living with the disease, roughly 80,000 Kentuckians that currently have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or dementia. And it can also help keep these individuals in their home and communities longer, rather than having to force these people into a nursing home, which of course is at a great cost to the state, maybe $30,000 a year, if not more, to keep those individuals in a facility versus keeping them home and safe in their communities. And all of you as members of Health and Welfare have heard this, spiel from me before. So without a person, though, to really help coordinate some of those services, help lay people navigate how confusing Medicare, Medicaid is, what state programs we may have available, the difference between their private insurance and qualifying for Medicaid, all those things are very complicated for individuals who even know a little bit about it. It's even more complicated for caregivers who really are not well versed in navigating this world. The other problem, of course, then, is that there is no individual dedicated within state government to update our plan. So again, there's some great recommendations in the state plan, but really none of them have had the ability to be followed up on or implemented because we don't have a dedicated individual in state government that's working on those recommendations within the state plan. And I think one of the biggest things, too, is that we're potentially missing out on millions of dollars that are out there floating around from the federal government. And those come in the form of grants, different funding opportunities that are specifically, supposed to be implemented in states and that are out there up for grabs in order to improve Alzheimer's and dementia services and supports infrastructure. But grants and grant writing and applying for grants is a very lengthy and intensive process. And again, without someone in state government dedicated to doing that specific to these type of grants, it's just really not feasible to try and bring some of those federal dollars into the state. And just as an example of this is just, again, one out of 11 states now that are in the process of implementing this. Virginia established their dementia services coordinator back in 2015. And since that point in time, they have brought in over $5 million into the state to improve their dementia care services. So a lot of the states that you see that have began to have implemented this position, they're starting to get some of these federal dollars, and they're seeing some real increases in their quality of care outcomes. Just to note, a few of them would include, again, Virginia, Georgia, Illinois, New Mexico, and Texas currently are working on the implementation of their position as well. So obviously, the Senate Bill 74 passed. We had unanimous support. It was fantastic, very grateful. The cabinet, the Department for Aging and Independent Living, they have been able to fund the position. We have hired someone, Jennifer Craig. She's fantastic, tons of experience in the field, exactly the type of person that we want to have in this role. All of this is great. The department has received a grant, which is enabling them to fund this position, but unfortunately, likely only for 1 year, maybe with pinching some pennies and stretching some dollars for 2 years. Obviously, a year on the job isn't really enough for anyone to make a real impact or difference. I mean, I've been here 3.5 years and I still don't know what I'm doing half the time. So I don't really think giving someone a year to try and get their feet wet and make some real differences in this space is enough time. And of course, the uncertainty of not knowing if your job is going to continue is troublesome for that individual. I think in a situation where perhaps this was a position that is temporary in nature, so perhaps using grant funding to bring someone in to maybe study some specific impacts of COVID-19 on a certain population, right? That you can understand that being a temporary position in nature. But I believe to really see the full benefits of this position, to invest in the front end and then see massive economic benefits on the back end. Again, everything from, looking at our services in the state, where are there gaps in services, maybe where are services duplicative, so maybe where we could save money because, you have two things essentially accomplishing the same issue. Maybe departments aren't talking to each other enough about what services we even have available for individuals with this disease and their caregivers. There's just a lot of benefits, I think, from an economic standpoint to having this position fully funded indefinitely. So it is for that reason that I am hoping to ask that this position be included in the cabinet's budget ongoing so that we know that this position is secure and that can it achieve all of the different outcomes that we hope it will achieve. And I'm sure everyone now is wondering, of course, how much are we looking at? What's the request? With the combination of salary and benefits, this is the number I received from Dale, it would be $115,000 appropriation. So dare I say a drop in the bucket, if I may, for some really, really important services within the state. And, I am happy to answer any questions, if anyone is wondering more about why we need this position and why it needs to be secured. I'm more than happy to answer those questions for you.
Excellent job, as always. Appreciate it. And a couple of epiphanies I've had during this interim session specific to appropriations revenue is sometimes we don't recognize the costs associated with doing nothing, and usually it's quite substantial. And the other being that a lot of people will present and say that if we do this, we'll save this. But we don't do a good job, if we do it at all, of documenting the savings. But I don't think that's anybody's fault. It's just that almost every service that we provide in the state, I think, can make the argument that they need more funding. And when they realize those savings, then those are just used to offset the shortage of funding that they haven't received. So we never really see that full benefit of those savings, but that's just something we have to accept. But I think your position is well stated, and I appreciate your position. With that, we'll open this up for question, and we'll go with those present in the room first, and then those who are participating remotely, please use the chat function, and staff will notify us of your question. Start with Representative Westrom.
Thank you for being here. You are always so informative, and
thank you, Representative.
You make us just stop and take a deep breath. I'm wondering, has this specifically ever been in a budget bill, or was it under the umbrella of the whole cabinet?
Not to my knowledge that it has ever been in a budget bill. Or under the umbrella of the cabinet either. It was really just established, and then the office just kind of was there in name only and never really existed.
Well, thank you for bringing this to our attention. We would bear a responsibility if it were placed in a budget and or removed, but it was never placed in a budget. Please don't let this session get by without making sure, by yelling at us, that we need to make absolutely positively certain that this is in the budget.
I don't think you have to worry about that with me.
Okay, thank you.
I think I'm nothing if not persistent.
Representative Wilner, do you have a question? Did you have a question?
Well, I didn't, but I will just comment that, as part of the Alzheimer's and Dementia Task Force, that Workforce Development Task Force, we were, every session, every meeting, and this was during 2 interims ago, right? The numbers of folks faced with Alzheimer's and dementia and how that number is growing enormously, and with life expectancies increasing, is going to continue and continue and continue to grow. And so to Chair Meredith's point, the cost associated with doing nothing, and then coupling that with the number of individuals and the number of families that would be affected by doing nothing, it's very sobering. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Wilner. Representative Moser, you have a question, comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, as always, for bringing this information. And we've worked hard to make sure that this coordinator position is, it's been in the cabinet for a while. It hasn't been funded. We put it in statute last year to ensure that this position is funded or is actually implemented. The cabinet assured us that this would be an internal kind of readjustment and would be, these costs could be absorbed by the cabinet. So how do we as legislators, because we don't appropriate, we appropriate funds, but we don't have line item kind of jurisdiction over what the cabinet funds. How do we hold their feet to the fire? They have, it looks like, hired someone to work on this issue. I don't know if we can put something in statute that says that this should be funded through grants, or what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I personally wouldn't like to see it funded through grants. Again, I just think that can be temporary in nature, and
I'm just using that as an
example.
Sure.
I think especially with the hiring of Jennifer Craig, she really is a fantastic individual with all of the background and experience that we want. And I would worry, without securing the position, we wouldn't be attracting, or if it's in any way could be, impacted by grant cycle or what have you, that we wouldn't be able to retain her or attract the type of individual that we want for the position. I make no qualms about being a budget expert or an appropriations expert, so I don't necessarily know what the specific answer is to say, whether it's to the cabinet, like, hey, this has to be a line item, or how, you as members of the legislature are able to do that. But, I really won't feel comfortable until and unless that happens with this position. And, I understand it's a new position, maybe a year or two, if they could stretch it for 2 years to just sort of get a status update and see how the position is going and that sort of thing. I can understand some reasoning behind that. But, I don't even know if a year is enough time to really say, well, what have you been doing and is it worth funding this position indefinitely? Mm-hmm. So it's sort of a non-answer to your question.
No, it's okay. I'm happy to continue these conversations with the cabinet and work on this to ensure that, we maintain and fund this position. So thank you.
Representative Moser, I might offer that giving our mutual understanding of what the cabinet's commitment was supposed to be, and I'm not challenging them, it's just to get it verified for this next budget cycle, that maybe a letter from you, Senator Alvarado, and Representative Bentley and I saying, here's our understanding, can you verify that for us? If not, we'll have to make it an appropriation within the budget, but maybe that's the starting point, just to make sure that they are committed. Senator Alvarado, you have a question?
Thank you. Just piggybacking on that, Mr. Chairman. So, this is a good bill. We knew it was important. I know other states that we've talked about what we're trying to do to help improve diagnosis, identifying grants, developing a state plan for the state when it comes to dementia. And this is what other states that have done it successfully have done. So, and again, just what Chairman Mosier had said, we've had meetings with the Secretary who told us, yeah, this is important. We know it needs to be done. We're going to find a way to fund this, is what he assured us. So there are pockets of money, Mr. Chairman, things that I don't know that we should be using Medicaid dollars for, that we are using it for, like advertisements, $7 million worth of advertisements, hot air balloons in Louisville, cartoons on television. 115,000 out of that probably won't affect a couple less cartoons on TV that can be used to fund something that will really impact people's lives, the delivery of better care for years to come, more than a few advertising dollars. So maybe there's a way of putting budget language in, saying some of that needs to be diverted towards this position long term. I think that might be a good way to do it. But thank you very much. I always appreciate your testimony.
Remotely, we have Representative Sheldon, who has a question or comment, or possibly both.
Thank you very much, Chairman Meredith. I just want to tell McKenzie, thank you so much for what you're doing here. The old adage, when you don't have anybody in charge, nothing's going to get done. And I think you pointed that out greatly. I think to have somebody appoint to work on those grants and to stay actively involved. I noticed there's a number of, and the question goes to this point, there's a number of, Alzheimer facilities. We have one here locally that those things can be 5 to 6 to 10,000 sometimes a month to try to take care of folks. So the idea that you would be working towards keeping people home longer, I know Medicare has some, for the most part, will cover a big part of being at home for home health and some of that skilled work. But when they get into a facility that's designated Alzheimer, the support doesn't get anywhere near the cost of what it. So I love what you're doing, and I would hope that what Jennifer, and I'm sure she is, will bring in these a lot of these private facilities, Alzheimer facilities across the state, and bring those guys to the plate and see what we can do to partner up with those guys. Does that make sense, maybe?
Yes, absolutely, Representative Sheldon. And I think just also to your point, we know too that there's about, I think this is the right figure, $428 million in our Fmap funding that is coming to improve and expand our home and community-based services in this state. And reading through what the cabinet's plan was, or our Department for Medicaid Services, I think it's been partially approved by CMS. Reading what the cabinet has in plan for that, I just going through that saw a lot of opportunities for some improvements of services, some training of caregivers, and having a person in state government too that is responsible for the Office of Dementia Services and then can work cross-functionally with DMS here as we're adding all of these millions of dollars from our Fmap funding. I just see so many opportunities to improve some of our services and supports through home and community-based services, which again, to Representative Sheldon's point, is achieving our goal of keeping these individuals in their home and communities as long and as safely as possible, rather than having to put them into a facility.
Appreciate your presentation on this, and again, I guess maybe not a formal recommendation, but go back to Senators Alvarado and Representative Moser and Representative Bentley that possibly the next step for us is to write a letter asking the cabinet to document for us what their understanding is and their commitment to this is, and if not, then we will go to step 2, I think, which would be a line item appropriation in the budget. So appreciate your presentation this morning, and look forward to working with you.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. And I also see No Shave November is going very well for a few members of this committee, except for Senator Alvarado. So I don't know, Mr. Chair, perhaps. Don't do that, Senator Carroll. Thank you all.
Order here. Let's not get personal, all right?
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Feel free to defend yourself, yes.
The Speaker of my House will not allow me. That's all. I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. And I know the staff is particularly proud that we are right on schedule. Moving on our next presentation, we'll hear an update from the University of Louisville on the loan for the Jewish Hospital, which was extended for 2020 session. If representatives from U of L will come forward and identify yourself for the record. Senator Alvarado, Senator Carroll's remarks will be stricken from the record. Okay. even though they were funny and entertaining.
Please hold technical difficulties.
That's what happens when we become a slave to technology. Maybe this is the curse of the legislative gods, because I said we were on schedule.
Do you all have copies of the presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. If we're going, if this is Plan B, we'll proceed with Plan B. If we would, again, identify yourself for the record.
I'm Ken Marshall. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of U of L Health.
And I'm Katie Smith, the Deputy Secretary and Commissioner at the Cabinet for Economic Development.
Yes.
Where's the president?
The president of the university?
Yes, she was here when they asked for the money. She should be here today.
She is not here. She is occupied in other components, but I am the CEO for U of L Health.
I know. The day you all asked for that money, they closed my county hospital. And I've been begging for that county hospital for 3 years. I think she should have been here today. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Duly noted, and we will hold all of the questions right after the presentation. But thank you. Please proceed.
Let me introduce myself again. I'm Tom Miller. I'm the CEO for U of L Health, and we appreciate the opportunity to come and present to you kind of our second year. We have completed our second year of operations as U of L Health this past week, and I think we're proud of what we have done. We serve patients in all 120 counties throughout the Commonwealth. We have 12,000 associates who are our team members in our health system, and that includes over 1,000 providers in our health system. We're Kentucky's only dedicated burn center. We're one of only 2 level 1 trauma centers in the state of Kentucky. We're one of 2 organ transplant centers throughout the state, and we provided care to over $1.5 million patients this past year. If you go to page 2 on our slides, what you'll see is that we have about 250 locations across the 7-county area around the Louisville community. And we're very proud of that. Ken, this is working now. Okay. If you go to the second page. And we're very proud that we service a broad community both locally and regionally and nationally. One of the criteria that was asked of us on page 3, if you'll go forward, was focus on bringing access to the medically underserved areas in our community. And we expanded 5 urgent cares, which we call them urgent care pluses because they're urgent care plus primary care offices, so that if you need urgent care, you can receive that. But if you want a longer-term relationship, there are primary care doctors there. We recruited 143 doctors last year to our health system. 107 of those physicians were recruited to improve the access to HRSA medically underserved areas in downtown West Louisville, Shelby County, and Bullitt County. We invested we are planning on investing $50 million, not including KEDFA money, to open up a hospital in Bullitt County. Bullitt County is the 10th largest county in the state without a hospital, and it's our goal to open up that hospital and begin the construction on it later this year. And then we've invested $115 million over the last 2 years back in our healthcare facilities. So we've tried to meet the needs of the underserved. I do want to thank you. I want to thank you for expanding access through telehealth. House Bill 140, making telehealth medicine regulation changes permanent, has been very helpful to us. We were doing about 30 telehealth visits a month prior to COVID, and we're doing on average now about 4,000 a month. And developing telemedicine access opportunities for the rural healthcare and how we use it for stroke patients in the rural hospitals, who these hospitals are trying to determine whether they need more advanced levels of care. We're able to have our neurologist talk to that emergency room doctor and assess that patient and make a determination on what to do. The same with mental health through our Peace Hospital. And so it's providing access to care that really isn't available in many of the communities. If you'll go forward on the next slide. We are, University of Louisville Health is the safety net healthcare provider for our community. And it's hard to talk about the last 2 years without talking about the pandemic. We went through a fourth wave of COVID-19, which had a significant impact on our hospitals. We had as high in August of 162 patients within our facility that were COVID. We currently have 58 this morning within our hospital, and those numbers have come down, and the positivity rates are coming down. We completed over 175,000 vaccinations with the focus on the underserved areas in the community. We partnered with churches and local community groups to make sure that everybody had access. And what you see on this graph in the circled area, this is the West Louisville community. And you'll see where the heavily shaded areas that people receive vaccinations. And that was a focus from our standpoint. Our facilities were running all summer long, 30 patients above our bed capacities. We were holding patients in our ERs overnight. And we had this mentality that we would never say no. We got calls from almost every hospital in the state of, do you have availability to take care of patients? Because they were full. We took the position we will never say no, except we did say no to Louisiana and to Arkansas, who wanted to transfer patients to us. But we never said no to anybody in the state of Kentucky who needed access. And I just have to say, the term healthcare heroes is a term that was used a lot last year. It hasn't been much used this year. I will tell you, our staff and our nurses and our doctors did everything they could to make sure that every person got care, no matter what the circumstances that we were in. And that was the position that we took as an organization, as being the safety net hospital in the community. From a financial standpoint, you will see the first 8 months from November 1st through June 20th, 2020, and the 21 information. And we have been successful financially. The first year is an 8-month period, but it also shows some of the acquisition of the assets of Kentucky One that we had to put on our books. But we our net income was $95 million last year. We took care of almost a third of our patients were either Medicare or self-pay, which is a tremendous number for our hospitals. Our FTEs, we have a commitment through the KEDFA loan of 5880. We rose to 7,900 FTEs this past year. A lot of that was taking on services that were outsourced with Kentucky One and bringing those back to Louisville in our business office and our IT functions associated with it. And we did achieve our average hourly rate. You'll see some differences associated with the rates from year to year, and that's because of additional people that we've added on in our business office functions. And our admissions last year were 41,000, a little over 41,000. And so it was a successful financial year for us. We were able to achieve everything we outlined that we would do in this acquisition. As you know, the acquisition was initially losing $50 million. The university was concerned about taking on the responsibility associated with it. We would have been in a very difficult position if Jewish Hospital would have closed down. They ran as high as 320 patients this summer, and there was no place in our city to take care of those patients anywhere else, and that hospital closed down. And so I want to thank you for your trust in us, and thank you for the commitment that we made and that the university made in us, and the local foundations have made in us because they followed through with their words. If we talk about the KEDFA loan, just to remind you, it was a $35 million loan that was provided to us. $17.5 million of that would have to be paid back over 20 years with a 1% interest rate, and the first payments are made in 2024. We used the $35 million we outlined in our annual report of all the items that we used it on. We used it to reinvest back in our facilities to make sure that we had the opportunity to take care of our patients. As we look forward, we're focusing on new growth, supporting rural health by adding 60 beds of U of L Health Medical Center South, which is in Bullitt County, building a 40-bed rehab hospital, which we broke ground on yesterday with a partnership with Kindred. Plans are underway to improve U of L Health's primary teaching site. We're adding an additional adult psych program to Mary and Elizabeth Hospital. This past year, we've really focused on making sure that our hospitals were the community hospitals for our community. So Shelby Hospital, which at one point in time was considered a Band-Aid station, and I don't mean that negative to them, but more patients were transferred out than came to their emergency room. We focused on adding a 6-bed ICU and recruiting additional specialists in that community. And when we took them over, they had an average census of 2. Today, they were running 18 patients in their hospital, which is just tremendous. And their surgeries have tripled. And we're able to try to keep those people in that community. Mary and Elizabeth, we added a 24/7 STEMI program as an interventional cardiac program. Brown Cancer Center, we expanded to 2 additional sites to take academic medicine and reach out more into the community associated with it. We've opened additional ORs, and trauma volumes have hit record numbers in our community, unfortunately. A lot of that is violence in the community, and we're the hospital who takes care of all those patients. Jewish Hospital, we opened a 20-bed geropsych program. When you talk about Alzheimer's, this is part of the area that we believe that we can make a difference on. Jewish also implanted 2 artificial hearts, which was another world first for Jewish Hospital. And from a quality standpoint, which was a question in the last time, one of our hospitals was an F. All of our hospitals are above C now on the Leapfrog statistics. And it takes several years to make a difference on this. And they are growing, and we believe they will continue to grow and do better. Our goal in presenting to you is, one, keeping our promise. We continue to meet and exceed all the conditions of the KEDFA loan, and we've sent that in our report. We've used the proceeds of the loan are spelled out in the letter that we have, and we've outlined every single thing. And because we have been able to achieve the items that we've had, and you had trust in us, we are in discussions with the cabinet to amend the terms of the loan to allow for accelerated payments back. And with that, thank you very much for your trust in us. I do believe that we're doing what we said we would do, and we are making a difference in our community.
Questions from the committee? I have one, possibly a couple. Looking more long term, I'll have to admit that when we talk about medically underserved area, I really didn't envision that applying almost specifically to the greater metropolitan area, 16 counties within what's considered greater Louisville. I guess I have more of a global vision. What do you see the vision for U of L Health, say 5-10 years from now? And the reason I ask that, it's based on part of Representative Bentley's comment.
Sure.
Why you folks are really shoring up, again, the healthcare delivery system within that 16-county area. Well, maybe it's less than that because I guess we don't count Indiana specifically, but while that's being bolstered, being supported, we have a rural healthcare delivery system throughout the rest of Kentucky that's struggling mightily. And I would hope that the University of Louisville Health's vision encompasses more than just that immediate geographic area. And what do you do for the far ends of the state, or do you see that's part of your mission? If it's not, I understand that, but just would like to understand what the future looks like.
I'll try to identify that in several ways. One is from the university standpoint. The university has accelerated programs out for moving family practice residencies out into the rural communities. And so I think they have 3 of those programs now, and they're reaching out to do more of those. So I do think there's the opportunity because the number one, I'm a rural hospital CEO, so that's what I did for the last 5 years. And the number one issue is having doctors in your community that live there and work there and stay there. And so the ability to build primary care into those communities with doctors and teach them there and be a part is a key. And the university is committed to continuing to do that, and we're reaching out every day to try to do that. From a health system standpoint, we have reached out to every rural hospital within 80 miles of us to try to see how we can help them. And is that purchasing supplies cheaper? Is it being able to get on our managed care contract so they get paid better? Are there recruitment needs that we can help with within the university and the 516 residents that we have? I've reached out, and we continue to meet with those hospitals. Some have relationships with other hospitals in the state, whether it's UK or CHI or Baptist. Others are freestanding. And if there's an opportunity for us to help them, we are reaching out right now today and have been doing that this year to see what we can do to help them with their circumstances. And whatever that is, we'll be glad to do that. And that's our regional approach. You know, we have taken care of patients in every county in the Commonwealth this year. And so when I got a call from Greg Kaiser at Three Rivers Hospital saying, I've got 5 people in my ER and I can't take care of them, you know, that's 100 and some odd miles away. We said, yes, we'll take those patients and help you out. In every case, we do that. Most of what we're out there doing is the tertiary care and the high-end care of those patients. They want to keep their local patients as much as they can, but when they get overwhelmed, we are there for them. And so as we look going forward, I hope we further have what I would call affiliation relationships with these hospitals if they're interested. And we're not talking about buying them. We're just talking about assisting and helping them in what they need. And if I can do that and help them be successful and keep their patients in the community, we've done a lot. And so that's what we're reaching out to do.
Well, I appreciate that commitment because I've told the story on numerous occasions when I was a hospital CEO. And you well know, being in the business, that the average tenure of a hospital CEO is usually 5 to 7 years. So
there's a tipping point, isn't there?
I was at the same hospital for 30, so I got the opportunity to develop a lot of friendships with people within the metropolitan areas. And anytime a new hospital CEO would come to town, they would call me up and say, let's have lunch, and want to be my new BFF. And part of the conversation was, hey, we're glad to have a relationship with you. But if you help us keep our primary care and secondary care patients that we're capable of taking care of, then you can have all the rest. And almost without exception, I would get eyes that would start rolling, and even one said, no, I really need that primary care as well. So I appreciate you saying that you want to keep those patients in their local communities. And I think that's not, it certainly improves the health of the community, but also the financial health of the community. And what concerns me most at this present point in time, and I asked this question at our last Medicaid Oversight Committee meeting, and it's not a rhetorical question, why would anyone choose to go to a rural community to practice medicine when you know you're going to make 25 to 30% less than the urban counterparts with a sicker population and more non-compliant population? Why would they choose to go there? You know, we can train as many people as we want and possibly recruit them on a part-time temporary basis to rural communities, but what can we do to sustain that, to let them have a firm primary care base within our rural communities?
You know, I think that's something that we all have to work together on. And paying back loans is one of the, as a CEO of the largest rural hospital company in the United States, that's what we focused on, is how do we help these individuals who are coming out in debt? And they're coming out hundreds of thousands of debt. And if we could keep them in our communities for 4 or 5 years until they established a practice and got their roots in the community, then that's how we had to do it. But it's not just primary care. Every rural hospital should have orthopedics, should have general surgery, or you can't make it work, because unfortunately surgery is what makes money in hospitals, not necessarily primary care. And so it's much more than that to make these hospitals successful. And I think the ability to use the residencies that we have within our programs and allow them to come work and teach in those hospitals and see if they like the community, see if there's a match. That's how you keep people there. It's all about relationships.
Well, one of the things we would always sell at my home community hospital was quality of life. And that's what a lot of people look for. But again, the bigger challenge is, why would you sacrifice 25, 30% of your earnings? Is it worth that price? And I think that's the big challenge we have ahead of it. So I think we need to have some serious dialogue about this, because I think it really can improve the health of our state if we incentivize people to go to rural communities and stay there. You know, a lot of programs, I had loan forgiveness as well, but I don't think that's enough this day and time to keep them there. And I think maybe my small hospital may be the canary in the coal mine. When I left in 2013, we had 34 active staff physicians. Today, it's less than 16. And I don't know that it's getting better anytime in the meantime. And if our system collapses, which I think there's a real potential that it could, you folks will get those patients, but what you're going to get is an overabundance of no pay, the self-pay, in the Medicaid, which can't pay the bills. And that was part of Jewish's demise to begin with.
Well, and I would give you examples after example, but I'll use cardiology in Taylorsville Hospital. They can't attract a full-time cardiologist, but we place somebody there 4 days a week, all day long, to help those patients so they can be seen in that hospital. They may not be there every single day and live in that community, but if we can help patch it so that the community gets the help it needs, then that's great. That's where we can make a difference.
And I appreciate that commitment. I just hope there's a sense of urgency. Sorry to dominate this conversation. We do have some questions. Senator Berg.
Hello, guys. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I'm not there in person for this presentation. I wish I was. I do want to make two comments. One, I think that U of L has just done an amazing job over the pandemic, responding to the needs of the community here. I have never been prouder of the U of L healthcare system than I am at this point. And I want to tell you, I will be very honest. When U of L decided to take over Jewish, I had a lot of reservations. You know, Jewish, I don't know if any of you all know this, but my father was chief of staff at Jewish Hospital years and years and years ago. I grew up at that hospital. I loved that hospital. But it was losing money horribly. And I was really, really worried it was going to take U of L down. And instead, I think that U of L has done an absolutely amazing job of increasing the services to the community and keeping true to its mission. Senator Meredith, I think that one of the things that we can look forward to in the future is as we train more and more of our own local physicians here from Kentucky and teach them what opportunities we have here in the state and let them go home and serve their communities, that we can have a tremendous impact on healthcare in this state. I just want to say thank you to you guys. I think it has exceeded my expectations far beyond anything I could have imagined.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Moser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for your presentation. I just want to applaud all of you at U of L for the work that you've done in keeping your promises and really echoing what Senator Berg has said. I'd like to kind of tag onto Senator Meredith's question about rural health and really what your plans are to address the healthcare worker shortage. You touched on it. I think that, we could do a lot to federally improve or increase the GME slots. We have some programs through AHEC that are really in place to recruit and retain healthcare workers. And really the hospital systems and MCOs are really the entities that stand to benefit from, in addition to, of course, all of us, in bolstering our healthcare workers. Do you have a plan? I would really like to see some sort of partnership, even a P3 through the universities and the MCOs to better fund AHEC and maybe modernize what they're doing right now. I know that they're placed regionally and every region is different, but I think that they have a lot to offer if we could help them focus their efforts and better fund them. Do you have something like that in place? Any ideas around our healthcare worker shortage?
Let's talk about the healthcare worker shortage. And just so you understand where we're at this morning, we're about 500 nurses short from what we need. And the unfortunate situation which causes part of the problems are many of our nurses are deciding to be travelers and go work in other parts of the country at rates 4 or 5 times what we're paying locally. They don't get any benefits and they have to travel away from their home. And that is a really difficult thing. And we've tried to increase wages to be more competitive to what's going on. But the best way we can do this is through the schools. And so we're supporting the university in regard to adding additional programs so that we can bring more nurses in I mean, there is no other profession that you can leave your job today and go work anywhere in this country tomorrow than being a nurse. And I just commend them for that work. And so trying to expand the schools of nursing is a key part of what we're focused on. We've also, and even if they doubled their size, it's not going to fix the issue in these communities for years. And I hate saying that, but I think that's true. We've had to go to international nurses. And we have hired 350 international nurses that will be coming over the next few quarters into Louisville in order to try to meet some of the needs. And so anything that we can help on the statewide program, anything we can do with the schools and the educational processes, and having to bring people in from throughout other countries are what we're having to do, because we cannot fix this problem today. I can't magically open up and train people. We have programs that we've helped establish to take LPNs to make them RNs, to bring retired nurses back. We're asking our staff, though, to do too much and to work too hard. And that's what leads to burnout, which can lead to some of these problems just accelerating. And so there is no easy fix on this, except it's the greatest profession in the world to be a healthcare provider.
Thank you. We still have 5 people in our queue for questions, and just remind folks we're getting a little bit compressed for time, so if you will, keep your questions as short as possible, responses, if we could, as short as possible. Representative Sheldon, you have a question, comment?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to ask, and I know we've talked about this in the past, but I wanted to remind at least myself, when it comes to rural healthcare, we're looking to, I know there's some programs within medical schools that encourage graduates to go practice in the rural settings. Is U of L continuing to expand that or involved in that with the medical school and believing that may be in collaboration with the AHEC concept? Is that something you guys are doing?
It is something the school is doing. I believe they're in 3 different sites in rural areas where they're doing teaching associated with it. And I think they have five residents out there in some of these sites. Is it something we could expand more? We've got to get more residency programs. And right now, as you know, the federal government has capped those residency programs out there, and family practice is in great need of expanding those programs.
That's right. I appreciate that. And yeah, I do recall that being an issue now. And thank you so much. Thank you for what you've done here with this money. You've made believers out of a lot of people, and I just appreciate it. And I don't even think we were supposed to start measuring a lot of these metrics for a couple years, and it looks to me like you've met most of them already. So we appreciate it, and thanks for that. And keep reaching out in our rural communities. We need that. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to say that I remember when U of L came before the Appropriations and Revenue Committee, and that was a huge ask. And I wasn't convinced that there would be this type of success, and I congratulate you on that. I believe as far as rural health care, I worked with AHEC recruiting physicians for Southeastern, and our med students are graduating, and they're looking for a thriving community where they can be safe and have a long-term residency for their families. It's very, very difficult to change a community overnight. If we could just find some way to magically improve the lifestyle and the opportunities in many of our rural areas that don't have a tax base to provide any luxuries, and until we get down to that level, I don't know how we're going to get the medical personnel that we need. But thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for your commitment and understanding the needs in the rural areas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your report. I'm encouraged by the progress that you're making. I just want to echo concerns. I love my rural hospital, and I appreciate your attitude of saying you want to help them, not just take over them. Echo the AHEC. I was a physical therapy student and went through AHEC, so anything you can do in those healthcare workers. I want to say my husband is one of the faculty at the U of L Owensboro Health, and he's enjoying working with those residents. Anything y'all can do to get more residencies would be great. And I also wanted to say thank you. My brother had an accident coming back from a truck accident coming back from Eminence, and he went to U of L and was very well taken care of. And the EMR, my husband hates the EMR, but the EMR helped his primary care physician in Shelbyville know what was going on with him and help with continuity of care once he was done. So just thank you, and just look forward to hearing more positive reports in the future. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Alvarado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate that. Gentlemen, thank you for your presentation. Appreciate all the information, the good work you all do. Another profession that's in high demand, can go almost anywhere these days, are physicians, as we know. So not only just nurses, we're starting to see the same situation. A lot of burnout, a lot of reasons for burnout. Part of it's workload, although workload's always been heavy in medicine. EMR, which was supposed to be a promise of making things more efficient, has not been that. It's been more burdensome. I know it's here to stay. I know that's how we think we're tracking information. There's an interoperability problem. That's a whole other discussion for another time that needs to be worked on. I know we're hearing a lot of things about residency programs, preceptor tax credits for rural physicians or nurses who are wanting to bring in medical students or nursing students to experience rural medicine in rural areas. We've proposed a lot of those bills in the past. For that, to fund residency positions. Our trauma network, we hear from our hospitals all the time, the lack of funding. I'll be filing a bill this year, very similar to the super speeder bill that we saw in Georgia has passed, people that exceed 20 miles over the speed limit. It's collected a lot of money there, sadly enough, in Georgia, but to use those funds particularly to fund these kinds of programs and to fund trauma networks, residency positions in our rural communities, preceptor tax credits, acute brain injury slots for a waiver, which are very expensive. You all know, if you're close to Fraser Hospital, $90,000 per slot. I hope it doesn't generate enough revenue to cover those, but I suspect it will, and to use some of those for those purposes. I do have two questions for you. First, I'm glad that you're using the international system. I've advocated for that for a long time. A lot of nurses in the Philippines, south of our border, who are very good at what they do, well-trained, who would love to come to the United States to earn the kind of money that we're paying nurses, even what we've been used to paying them in the past, because it's 8 times what they're making back home, and they're very qualified people. So I'm glad to hear you using that. But two questions. Do you think, first of all, do you think that the nurses that we've lost to agency nursing who are now doing travel often are signing 2-3-year contracts? Do you think you've lost them for a while? Was the window of opportunity past us to get them back? And secondly, liability issues, which I know is still a factor for recruiting doctors, recruiting nurses to practice in this state. You all are right against the Indiana border. Could you comment on how much that impacts you and the cost that it impacts your hospital?
Ken, do you want to answer either one of those, or I'll start if you'd like me to?
Well, I think on the nursing issue, I think we've lost some people out of the workforce. I mean, I think the last 2 years have been difficult for those who are at the front lines, and we're starting to see the results of burnout on that.
But we haven't lost them for good. They're signing more 4-month contracts,
right,
and we have the opportunity to bring them back at that point in time. So we keep in communication with them, but we're not losing them forever, I don't believe.
And I think there are two things. There's we work, especially within the metro area, with a finite number of resources. When it's not just nurses, it's rehab, it's respiratory therapists, it's all those allied health plus nursing and physicians. It's a finite number. And to really move this needle, I think the pipeline has to be bigger to get more of the graduates out and into practice. And I think if we want to see something move, that's when that's going to happen.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could, the people talk about med students and nursing students. That's great. Medical students is great. Where the rate limiting factor is in residency positions, because you can be a med student anywhere. Wherever you get your training to get your license, you wind up, and I'm a case in point, right? I'm a California kid, came to Kentucky, got Kentucky-fied once I got here, fell in love with the state, and I've stuck around, and here I am doing what I'm doing now, and I'm still practicing. So we need to attract more folks, because once they come here, they get some roots down, they like it, they build their connections, they stick around for that long term. And some of the things that we're talking about are things. So that's good to hear. I mean, we've been advocating during a special session that just passed for funding. We didn't get a response from the governor's office on that. If there's still an opportunity to get them back, that's something we need to look at to help bolster for recruitment and retention of that staff. And if you could comment on liability and how much of a factor that is for you too.
And let me address residency for a second. Our health system agreed to expand and pay for the 20 additional residency slots this year. And that's just a commitment on our part to try to reach out further. But that needs to be addressed, and there's discussion that it will be addressed. I think on the liability standpoint, we have a self-funded captive ourselves, and so we've been able to manage within our captive and been successful, not seeing huge swings, although the systems are hardening up again in so many different areas. But it's not at a critical point today, but it is hardening up to get insurance and particularly to get reinsurance associated with it. But the years of 10 years ago, we're not seeing just yet. Anything could happen. I think we're somewhat fortunate the court systems were closed down for about a year and a half, and that means that suits aren't coming forward. And so we're okay today, I think.
We'll save our last question for Representative Wilner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I want to add my thanks and appreciation to you for this presentation and for really the incredible work that you're doing. And as a member of the Jefferson County delegation, I've had an opportunity to get some updates along the way about the really amazing work you're doing to address underserved populations. And I know you just briefly touched on it today. And I don't know if you've offered those updates to other members of the committee who maybe, represent other areas, but I was so impressed by that information. And I think it really is relevant for other members of the committee. And I just wanted to recommend that you make those updates available for anyone who might be interested. My colleagues know that those updates are something that you have offered. So thank you so much.
I'd like to finish with follow up on Representative Westrum's comments. I appreciate her experience in trying to recruit people to underserved areas. It is a challenge. And I think the biggest problem we have in Kentucky, and this may sound kind of rhetorical, don't mean it as such, but is poverty. And if we would make the same commitment to addressing the issues of poverty in Kentucky that we made to tackling COVID, I think we could truly turn this around for the state of Kentucky. I know a lot of emphasis the last General Assembly on the west end of Louisville, and certainly that is appropriate. But there's even more critical areas of poverty throughout the state, just not in the eastern Kentucky or extreme western Kentucky, throughout the state, even within my own district. And we truly need to make a commitment to address that. If we have a single county that fails, then we have failed as an institution. And I hope as we go in this next budget cycle that we can be bold in what we need to do. I think we all recognize in these budget review committees that we have a revenue shortage, and it needs to be addressed. I'm not suggesting raising taxes on anyone, but I am suggesting having a fair tax code. Because I'll remind everyone here that we have exempted 50% of the income in Kentucky that's generated from taxation, and that's not fair. We need a fair tax code because we are suffering mightily in a lot of different areas by not recognizing the costs associated with doing nothing, and for so many things we've done nothing. I want to commend you on your presentation today and the work that you've done. I know that Dr. Minapudi is particularly proud of the fact that you've done the 2 artificial heart transplants, and I think that's great for not just Louisville, but for Kentucky. It puts us on the map, and I don't know why Kentucky can't be the center of medical excellence for the United States if we're bold in our efforts. But again, it requires efforts on everyone's part and a commitment for this entire state. So appreciate you being here today, and we look forward to talking to you again in the future. Thank you. Next presentation is from folks from Bowling Green. Ask them to come forward and introduce yourself for the record. And to remind some of our committee members that these folks are getting to be old hat at this because this will be their 3rd presentation they made during the summer session on this item. If you would, after we get your slides up and running, identify yourself for the record and feel free to proceed. Thank you. Folks, part of our technical problem is that your video that's embedded within your presentation. It's a little bit of a challenge to do that. Having seen it previously, I think it certainly has value to our Medicaid Oversight Committee meeting, but could we respectfully ask not to do that portion of your presentation?
Certainly. Certainly. In fact, I believe...
Please push your button. You have to green light.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In fact, you all should have the PowerPoint presentation in your packets. Would you like for us to work from that?
You pushed your button accidentally.
You're on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll project and my button is on.
All right. Thank
so
you.
we can use...
Let's do that. Well, your slides are up now, so we can do that. It's just the video we have difficulty with.
All right. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Mary Lloyd Moore, Executive Director of the Suzanne Vitale Clinical Education Complex in Bowling Green, and this is Mr. David Wheeler, Executive Director of our Lifeworks at WKU program. And David has over 25 years of experience with Life Skills Incorporated, where he worked with state general fund dollars throughout his tenure there, and as well as the Michelle P. waiver for 13 years. And we also have Mr. John Kelly, to my right, your left, who is founder of the Kelly Autism Program and parent of an adult daughter with autism. And it is our extreme pleasure to be here with you all today. Chairman Meredith, thank you for the opportunity, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to be here with you. We're here to talk about our Lifeworks at WKU program, as well as to sound an alarm about an unaddressed problem for the Commonwealth of Kentucky, as well as to offer a cost savings solution for that problem. Some of you all have heard this information, and we are most grateful to have the opportunity to present this information about our Lifeworks program for those of you who haven't heard about us before. Lifeworks at WKU is the most recent addition to the Suzanne Vitale Clinical Education Complex, whose purpose is very straightforward: to provide a seamless curriculum of education and support across the lifespan for individuals and families with autism, while at the same time providing exceptional evidence-based practice training for our students. We begin our programming at 15 months of age in the Renshaw Early Childhood Center, or Big Red School, and we move to the primetime program in the Kelly Autism Program for elementary, middle, and high school students. Then, when our students are ready for college, we have our Circle of Support program, where we support 60 WKU students as they go through WKU with autism. The CEC has more than 15 years of experience and positive outcomes for individuals and families that we serve. And our newest addition to the concept of a seamless curriculum across the lifespan is our Lifeworks at WKU program. Lifeworks is a separate 501c3 that is an outgrowth and continuation of the CEC. But at this point, I want to make absolutely certainly clear that we receive no funding whatsoever from WKU at all. It's a program that is designed to help those autistic individuals who have the ability to move to independent living and become contributing members of our society. And our Lifeworks program is a model, replicable program for the entire state of Commonwealth, and say the entire state of Kentucky and beyond. And David now is going to tell us about the Lifeworks at WKU program. We'll skip the video. So,
yeah.
Did you want to skip it from up there? Because I think if I click it, it goes immediately.
Oh.
Okay. And so, David, you can just...
That's okay. Well, good morning. It's good to be back. It's always good to be able to talk about this this program on behalf of not just us, but for the families and the individuals that we get calls from weekly who've been waiting for something like this. And so our program is a 24-month Transition Academy program where young adults with autism can come and obtain the skills necessary to gain and maintain gainful employment and achieve independent living and learn the skills necessary to maintain lifelong meaningful relationships. And so, and we're proud to be Kentucky's only living learning community for young adults with autism. So, and you'll see on this next slide a participant profile. A typical participant at Lifeworks is someone, as a young man or young woman with ages 21 to 30 who has autism. We have an individual now who also has cerebral palsy. We have a young lady enrolled that's coming next year who's from the Louisville area who also has cerebral palsy and autism. Intelligence levels range from low average to well above average, and their socioeconomic and educational backgrounds are varied. Our program is not a 24-hour staffed residential program. Participants begin living on their own in an apartment upon enrollment. And something you would have seen in the video is that we're fortunate to have a large educational, administrative, and training facility, and then directly behind it, just less than 100 feet, is a small, intimate housing complex consisting of 3 different apartment buildings. And it's a perfect setup for having organic environment, for being able to have people learn in the classroom setting, and then also in their apartments, and then in the community. And so that's what we work on all day, every day. And so they come to Lifeworks with skills already to some respect. We help them generalize those skills and then help build new skills so that they can transition 24 months later out into their own place. And then we would still maintain that relationship with them and providing wraparound services. But that's it in a nutshell. But back to the participant profile. Therefore, each individual must possess the capacity, motivation, and level of safety awareness to live independently. We currently have 8 participants enrolled, 4 males and 4 females from across the state, including Adair, Jefferson, Nelson, Webster, and Warren counties. They have varying backgrounds and education levels, but something they all have in common, as referenced on the slide, is a failure to launch. It's young people who have left high school, and some have left college. One has even left graduate school, returned home with their families, and gotten stuck. And so there's just been a real failure to launch. They're at home, unemployed, with little or no relationships. Their skills have regressed, and self-confidence and sense of direction are non-existent. Another shared commonality is that they all have aging parents who have voiced deep concerns about their son or daughter's future, stating, "I'm concerned about what is going to happen to them when I'm no longer capable or present to help them." Our program outcomes That's okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. We have 10 critical outcomes that we focus on there. 2 of the most important to me or to us is employment and independent living. That's critical to them and critical to us. And so all the others outcomes are important too, but that's our primary goals, is to help them obtain employment and learn to live, to achieve independent living. And so they all have individualized plans, and those plans change over time, but they all tie back to those outcomes. And so we require and support individuals to participate in community service learning, volunteerism, and employment. We have partnered with area businesses and industries to help boost the ongoing workforce development initiatives across the state. We facilitate growth in the areas of confidence building, social and interpersonal skills, and relationship building. Our approach is comprehensive, intensive, and individualized. The Transition Academy participants are there for 24 months straight through the summer. They have a small break during the holidays, but they're there every day and participating in class, on-site training, and going to work, and also service learning, volunteering. So, and then lastly, I'll mention that we have the opportunity for folks in our region or within driving distance who would like to participate in classes but not live in the program or not participate in the full program. And so we refer to that as the bridge program, and people commute in for that. So thank you. Thank you, Dr. Moore.
Thank you, David. So I would like for us to turn for a moment to statistics. The incidence, as you all know, of autism is 1 in 54 now, according to the Centers for Disease Control. And there are an estimated 82,000 plus autistic individuals in Kentucky. There are 50,000 plus individuals with autism in Kentucky between the ages of 18 and 64. And that's the population that we serve at Lifeworks. That is, for your information, 10,000 more people than in the entire city of Covington, Kentucky, and 10,000 less than the city of Owensboro, just to put that number into perspective. The lifetime costs for individuals with autism is $3.5 to $5 million over a lifetime. And families who have children diagnosed with autism earn 30% less than other families due to the additional responsibilities that are involved in caring for their autistic children. It costs $50,000 per year for individual therapies for children with autism who are 8 years of age and under. And interestingly, as you would expect, the majority of costs for autism supports in the United States are for adult services. An estimated cost of $175 to $196 billion a year for adults, and that's compared to $61 to $66 billion a year for children. I'll try to push this again, but I'll move on. There will be 500,000 autistic individuals aging into adulthood in the next 10 years. But of that number, 85% of college graduates with autism are underemployed or unemployed, and that's compared to a national unemployment rate of 4.5%. And we know that a contributing factor to this statistic is the lack of training in job readiness and life skills, which is what we offer at our Lifeworks program. The average cost of home and community-based waiver services in Kentucky in 2019 was $49,000 a year. But as you all well know, there is a waiting list for these services. So to the next slide, if we're able, thank you. We're in a state of crisis in terms of support for autistic adults, and we are here to sound the alarm once again. By age 22, publicly funded education and services cease to be available as families reach what we call the Great Service Cliff, which is the lack of support services available for adult individuals with autism. We have a unique need for a unique population that has not been addressed here in Kentucky. We get calls from all over the state inquiring about our program. They're starved for our services, and when they learn about program specifics, they say, "This is too good to be true and exactly what we have been looking for." We are indeed in a state of crisis, but we have a solution, and a solution that we think is cost-effective for the Commonwealth of Kentucky. The tuition of our Lifeworks program is $50,000 a year. These costs are for operational expenses only. The facility has been paid for by the most generous support from Mr. Bill Gatton and Mr. Gary Watkins. So we've got the facility. Personnel expenses are $985,752 per year for 18 staff members. Non-personnel expenses are $401,788, which brings our total to $1,387,540. Our capacity for the Transition Academy is 28 participants, with the actual cost per participant being $49,555. And then, as you heard previously, we will serve individuals in our bridge program additionally. So as you can see, there's no wiggle room in the budget. The tuition of $50,000 is absolutely necessary for the supports these individuals receive. But as you well know, this is more than most families are able to afford. And we do not intend for this to be an elitist program by any stretch of the imagination. And we'll, if we can, move to the next slide. There are very few programs of this nature in the United States, and there are no programs of this nature in Kentucky or in our immediate vicinity.
And as you can see in the slide, our tuition of $50,000 is the lowest available from the sample of these programs that I've provided for you. There's a range of $94,000 per year in Chapel Haven West in Tucson, to $57,000 a year at 29 acres in Dallas. And we'll move on to the next slide. The cost of funding a participant for 2 years is $100,000. Minus the state income tax from successful participants, which is they earn $36,000 a year times 5% tax rate times a 42-year work life, which is $75,600 minus 10% to account for the 10% who will not work, for a total of $68,040. The total cost becomes $100,000 less the reduction in cost of $68,040 for a total of $31,960 net cost to the state of funding one participant. On the other hand, as you were stating earlier, the lifetime cost of not funding a participant is $2,400,000. And we arrive at that number by multiplying the average 60-year lifespan past age 18 by $40,000, the cost per year for public support. The expected success rate for a Lifeworks participant allows for a reduction in the above cost of $2,400,000 per person in the amount of $1,768,040 across the lifespan. And finally, to the next slide, the cost of savings per class of 28 participants, which is, as I mentioned previously, is our capacity, is $49,505,120, with the total savings for 3 2-year budget periods being $148,515,360. And this equals a savings per net dollar spent for Lifeworks participant of $56.32. So the dollars spent on them will end up saving in the long run over time. And our next slide, the support provided by three 2-year budget periods will allow us to put in place our plan for sustainability that includes individual participant contributions, as well as OVR funding for some of our participants, Michelle P. waiver funding for some of our participants, charitable gifts from both corporate and private entities, as well as grant funding. That's our plan. We're also hopeful to create, with, of course, your help and approval, an autism waiver for such services in the Commonwealth. I know you've heard of autism waivers before, and I'm talking about the cost for individuals in the Lifeworks program. But we need time and to work out the details of this program, and I'm not here to talk about that specifically today. So to the next slide in your packets or on the screen, as you see and hear, we do have an issue of statewide emergency and really international impact. We know that some 50,000 autistic Kentuckians, give or take, are at home on their family couch. They have the capacity and desire and a whole host of unique strengths to offer to the workplace. We have a model, replicable program that can help mitigate the problems associated with the impact of autism on individuals and families, and ultimately save dollars for the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Lifeworks at WKU is the only transition program in Kentucky created to offer a pathway to independent living and working productively, thus providing a vehicle for autistic individuals to become contributing members of society, contributing to the fabric of life, as well as contributing to the tax base we have in the Commonwealth and the United States. But we certainly need your help. We need a line item budget of $2,800,000 over 3 budget periods to provide for the Lifeworks program. This dollar amount will provide, and only for 3, we're not looking for in perpetuity just for 3. This dollar amount will provide a runway for 84 individuals in the transition program, in addition to 100+ participants in the bridge program there at Lifeworks, to be productive members of society and potentially save the Commonwealth $1,768,040 over their individual lifetimes. We can help them to be contributing members of our Commonwealth, able to pay back some of the cost invested in them by the tax dollars they will return based on the salaries they earn when they're employed, and lessen state and federal dollars spent in their support over a lifetime. Everyone here in this room has the opportunity, and I believe, more importantly, the responsibility to provide assistance for this growing segment of our population to become more self-sufficient. But the tuition of $50,000 is too steep for most families to afford without our help. So would you please help us offer them a chance at a more independent, productive life, at the same time providing a cost savings for the Commonwealth, as well as being able to create a roadmap for other Kentucky communities that need such a program. 50,000 plus families in Kentucky need your help, and we certainly invite you to come and see our Lifeworks at WKU program whenever you would come, or whenever you're in the area. We would love to show you what we have. And again, Chairman Meredith, thank you, and all of you, thank you for the opportunity to be here today to talk about our Lifeworks program and to enlist your help in providing these services for our fellow Kentuckians. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent presentation. The third time I've heard it, gets better every time, and makes me more committed to it. And my initial interest in this is because it serves a population that I think truly is forgotten. We know autism is in our society, but once you reach an adult, we kind of forget about it a little bit. And truly, this is an underserved segment of our population. And I think you've said it very succinctly that, once they've completed their education, if they can't launch appropriately, then where do they go? And it becomes a financial burden to society. And I was truly impressed that they're not asking for an ongoing appropriation. It's a one-time appropriation to launch this program and make it self-sustaining. And it does fall in that category that it costs us a whole lot more to do nothing than to make this appropriation. So that's why we presented this 3 times. I appreciate the presentation yet again. Question from Representative Wilner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And like Senator Meredith, I'm a 3-timer, so this is the 3rd time I've heard it, first time in person. And it really is very impressive what you guys are able to do, and I certainly support your work and the request. I do want to ask you, though, if you have thoughts about bigger systemic solutions to this, because the numbers are so much more vast and there's so much more need than what any one center is able to provide. So Absolutely. Without any knock on the amazing work that you're doing, what are the bigger solutions here?
Well, you, as you well know, we have to start somewhere. And we have started with our Lifeworks program. And in the creation of a replicable model, we are hopeful that other communities who are so inclined in the Commonwealth would be able to look to our roadmap, to our blueprint, to our instructions. We've I won't say we can relegate it to a cookbook, but close. We can provide that for other communities. And so you are so right. It is a systemic problem, and it's not one that is just in Bowling Green or any of our hometown communities. And that's why the opportunities that we have at Lifeworks are so critical, because we have a blueprint. And so to me, that would be the beginning of an answer to your question. And again, and beyond that, we all need to link arms and recognize the problem and make the commitment to do something to support our brothers and sisters on the spectrum. Thank you. Senator Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I have a couple questions, and I appreciate you all's presentation. There are other providers throughout the state that do provide services to this age group on the spectrum. The waiver providers, and they do very similar types things as far as life skills and employment programs. The organization I run, we have individuals that are on the spectrum that we do that with, and we also have employment. So this is an issue statewide, and the employment part of what we do through OVR and Michelle P., it is part of a larger problem in the disabled population, in that these programs cannot sustain themselves at all. They're not financially viable. We lose, I think, to this point in the fiscal year, which started in September, I think we're already maybe $30,000 in the hole with this program. So this is a larger issue, and there are programs throughout the state that maybe not specific to autism, but do support that population, probably not to the level of expertise that you all do. And that's, so there are, these services are available where we could, at probably a lesser expense, focus on some of these centers and getting training to be able to help that population to bring more in. And we also have many in the disabled population that are getting no services right now. And, I think that's part of a larger problem. And just on questions, how many do you all have in your bridge program right now?
David?
We have approximately 10 in that, 10 people.
Okay. And so the funding that you all are requesting, is it to fill the slots that you have for 3 years, or is it just to?
Our capacity is for 28 individuals for our transition program, and the request is specifically to launch that and get us to capacity. But we have 10 individuals in the bridge program right now, but we've got the capacity as we grow. I'll digress just a moment, if you will. We've planned the program, we've secured the building, we've secured the staff, and we were ready to go in the midst of the pandemic. The pandemic came. We had folks that had signed up. We started last year. We have 11 folks in our program now, our transition program. Our capacity is 28. So we're building. We have 10 in our bridge program right now, and we've got much larger capacity as we build. Our staff now is 3, almost 4. So I want you to understand that we are building to capacity with our numbers. And David, you probably want to add something to that, but I wanted to jump in.
No, I think you covered it. And to the point you made, something that I've noticed or experienced in my time here at WKU at the Lifeworks program is that, like the Michelle P. waiver and some of the other services that are out there now are really for individuals with a lower IQ. And so a lot of these individuals have a higher IQ intellectually, but just really fall between the cracks in other areas. And so while some may qualify for the Michelle P. waiver, which, like you were pointing out, rates are very low, and we could, that could be certainly a source of revenue for us, and we're in the enrollment process for that right now. We have a lot of people who really don't qualify for other services because of their IQ.
Understand.
So,
okay, and the funding, will it be specific to low income clients that you have?
It will be specific to those who cannot afford. So if it would a sliding scale, if someone comes in and can afford it, then we certainly wouldn't. They would pay the full tuition. Okay. But if we've got someone who can afford it, that would
based on whose income?
The individual and parents.
Okay. All right. Would y'all be willing to provide a financial statement as part of your request?
Certainly.
Okay.
Certainly.
And please don't get me wrong, I appreciate what you all are doing. Our organization is in the early stages of opening an autism center, more for pediatric. So I very much appreciate what you all are doing, and I wish that I wish there was more of a balance on the services throughout the state, and it is a struggle. And my daughter's boyfriend is on the spectrum, so we have that relationship, and he works, but there really aren't services in that area for that age group in our area that to help him get to a different level. And so I think the model that you all have is great. I think we could also expand some existing providers to make them more expertise to be able to increase the services available in the state. But appreciate what you do and appreciate the presentation.
Well, thank you so much. And
much.
Dollars are tight, but we do have the opportunity for this segment of individuals who have the capacity, are not living to potential at home on their parents' sofa, and with as you know,
So with a 3-year infusion, how is that going to carry you past the 3 years?
Our thinking is that we are going to be able to build our sustainability program that I described, and with the infusion of the 3-year, the 2-year budget terms, that whatever is not used, we will put in an endowment and be able to leave that there to assist those in the future coming through.
Okay, so the ask is for 6 years of funding.
Correct.
Okay.
If I could.
Please, John.
I'm not sure. Yep, there it is. It's on. This program, as the others, have been a very close collaboration with the community, fundraising in the community. In the course of this program, based on the success that we had with previous programs, we wanted to make sure that we had the resources available to be able to produce the facility, staffing to get us going. There is an ongoing effort to build endowment as we speak to support the scholarships long term. We feel we will get there. That's why we're asking for a limited term request relative to funding. It's bridging, if you like, playing on the words that we have with the program, to be able to get to that point of self-sustainability relative to working with the community. Combination of resources coming from program participants along with work within the community. As was talked earlier, we are spending as a nation more time and resources focusing on the younger group as they're maturing, working through the process. The problem is they don't have a light at the end of the tunnel in a lot of cases, that they're finding more resources earlier. As they get older, there are fewer and fewer resources. That's what has been driving the Lifeworks program, to give that opportunity to be able to say, as they age through that process, use other resources in the community. Here is a vehicle that is very intensive and, as David said, very focused on not just the social skills, but very much on the job skills, job coaching, the relationship there. A major portion of the timing behind this program is making sure that we're getting an individual not just in a job, but in a future occupation. We haven't succeeded if we've just basically gone through a program. Great, you can live in an apartment building by yourself or in a community with others and go out and find a job. If we don't connect them to an opportunity where they have skills, likes, desires, and capability, we haven't done our job. That's why we're working the program that we have. That's why it's as intensive as it is. I think the other point that got through, just to answer relative to the Bridge program, is it's probably 30 to 35 students, perhaps up to 40 a year, that could be handled with the staffing as we have to go through that particular process. And depending, again, on resources that are available, that could be a much larger number. And when we talk in terms of how we could coordinate all of them within a business community, it's a function of being able to have the resources to be able to support that growing piece of basically that day program, if you like, where they have, by and large, the social skills, but do not have the ability to be able to focus on developing a career. That's the primary focus of the Bridge program, and that is very replicable. It's resource related, and much larger numbers can be dealt through that particular program in the future that could address some of the issues that you brought up earlier.
Folks, I hate to cut this off, but we're running severely behind. Still have another presentation we need to hear. But if there's any follow-up questions, I'd ask that our committee members follow up with these folks, and we can give you that contact information. But appreciate, again, your presentation.
Thank you again for the opportunity.
Done an
Appreciate
excellent job.
it.
And folks, I'm sorry, it looks like you won't get a full lunch, but maybe I can get you a granola bar if you'll just bear with me for this last presentation. It's funding for food access programs, and if the presenters will come forward and identify yourself for record, please proceed.
Hello, I'm Kimmy Ishmael, Community Farm Alliance. I'm their policy campaign coordinator.
Hello, I'm Carissa Arnold. I'm a farmer from Woodruff County, Kentucky.
Hi, I'm Ted Johnson. I'm a farmer from some of those rural areas you were talking about, Owsley County, southeast Kentucky.
Welcome. Please proceed.
Pull up this presentation here. I would like to turn this off. Oh, okay. Okay. All right, thank you so much for having us today. We are so excited to be here. We'll go ahead and start with the first slide. So over the years, and especially since the pandemic, we have seen stronger connections between our local farmers and their communities. And though we have seen this relationship grow, Kentucky still ranks one of the lowest in food insecurity, with 1 in 6 of Kentucky's children facing hunger. Not only that, but we are 50th in consumption of fruit and vegetables. And according to the 2021 State of Childhood Obesity Report, Kentucky ranks number 1 in childhood obesity as well. So the people of this state are not only starving for calories, but they're starving for nutrition as well. So how can we improve nutritional security, but also helping farmers in the process? And when faced with these challenges, we ask ourselves what the solution is. We think creating a healthy farm and food fund would put forth a path that helps feed hungry Kentuckians while also putting money back into the pockets of farmers. We'll go to the next slide. So when looking at the issue of farming and hunger and how the two are connected, gives real opportunities for direct farm impact, healthy food access programs to emerge. And many other states have done that, with 2 being Arizona and New Mexico. And the 2012 obesity report from the Kentucky Legislative Commission recommended to achieve these following goals by the year 2020. To adopt a statewide organized integrated system of physical activity initiatives, a nutrition education strategically planned and adequately funded through public and private partnerships to improve health and prevent and reverse disease, and to stimulate the local food economy through supporting sustainable food systems that will increase access to healthy foods and spur economic development in both urban and rural communities. And fortunately, different organizations, including Community Farm Alliance, have stepped up to the plate in doing just that. With farmers market nutrition programs, or more specifically, Kentucky Double Dollars, which allows people who utilize SNAP to double their money that they spend on local fruits and vegetables in farmers markets and some select retail stores. And even with the success of these kinds of programs, it is vitally important for them to stay sustainable and growing and feeding hungry Kentuckians while helping farmers in the process. And there are some challenges in making these programs successful. Next slide, please. A lot of these great programs are often funded through federal grants that have matching requirements. This is a requirement that many face when trying to help their communities and can be a real barrier to program growth and sustainability. But by creating the Healthy Farm and Food Fund, this legislation would help nonprofits leverage federal funding, bringing more dollars flowing into the state and allowing it to stimulate our local economies. And initially, we thought the clearest and best route to support this fund would be through the Tobacco Master Settlement, since it was set up with the intention of diversifying agriculture and improving public health outcomes. Though we do feel neutral on the funding source as long as it helps small farmers and helps low-income people gain access to healthier foods. Next slide, please. And when we look at the benefits and the impact programs like Kentucky Double Dollars have, we can see why it is so important that they flourish. A 2021 Spur report showed us that broad expansions of healthy food incentives would provide powerful returns on investments for families, for grocers, and for farmers, as well as more broadly among state economies. With a Healthy Farm and Food Fund, we have the opportunity to increase consumption of fruit and vegetables, save on Medicaid healthcare costs, help combat preventable diseases, increase revenue for Kentucky small farmers, and generate an economic stimulus for the local and regional food systems. Next slide, please. So with farmers market nutrition programs, whether it's Kentucky Double Dollars, Fresh RX for Moms, or the Senior Voucher Program, there have been real life changes made, especially for the farmers of this state. And luckily today we have 2 farmers with us who have been impacted by accepting these incentive types of programs at their farmers markets and local IGA grocery stores. So I'd like to pass it off to Ms. Carissa Arnold.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I think as Chairman Meredith spoke earlier about addressing poverty in Kentucky, whenever we lift up the lowest of our citizens, we make the Commonwealth better for all of us. I have been a farmer for only 4 years. Previous to that, I managed a multi-million-dollar research project at the University of Kentucky, the College of Agriculture, in entomology. I have managed a local restaurant in Lexington that was very much innovative in the 70s, alfalfa, being farm to table and being one of the first restaurants to buy from local farmers. And I got to make those relationships, even before I became a farmer, with farmers coming to the restaurant, foragers. Here we are, what can you, but so I feel like I've had a 4-year field study so far. We began the market garden, and when the opportunity came up to, we were asked if we wanted to accept the senior nutrition vouchers and also the WIC, it was a no-brainer for me. I am a true Kentuckian, a coal miner's daughter. And if you all will remember, in the 80s, the coal industry took quite a downturn. I was only about 6 or 7 years old, but I remember my mother bringing a box of food home from the food pantry. I remember us getting food stamps to help us during that time that my father was unemployed until he could, find employment. And, it didn't last long, but it bridged that gap, and I think that's what it does for a lot of Kentuckians. Fast forward, at 22 years old, I found myself leaving a marriage that was unfortunately not a good one, and I had to leave Des Moines, Iowa, and come back to Kentucky, and I found myself in a position where I also needed assistance, raising a daughter by myself. I also was a WIC and SNAP recipient, and now being so fortunate to be on the other side of that table and being able to provide the very best fruits and vegetables, for the Commonwealth, for people who would not otherwise be able to afford, to buy those things. Because in the last 50 years, our grocery store vegetables have lost their nutritional value. And it is through local farms that you will get nutritionally dense food. Local farmers steward the land. So it is multifold. And I like to tell people, you can either pay the farmer or you can pay the doctor. And compared to the ask of what the doctors were here earlier, I think it's very small in comparison. I hate to use the idioms a whole lot, but I think it really drives home the point that a pound or an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would love to pass it off to our other farmer, Mr. Ted Johnson.
Thank you so much today for staying around through the lunch hour to listen to us talk. I really do appreciate it. Before I go into my spiel, I've just got to say I take off from work today to come here to give this presentation, and not many times, Mr. Bentley, you're going to hear that politicians enlighten someone. You've probably not heard that, Meredith, over a lot of your political career, but you have. You've helped me today to understand, and you have. I don't know how many times today that I've heard your concern about rural Kentucky. Every presentation. I'm from Alza County. I'm from rural Kentucky. And I just want to say thank you. I mean, not every day like I say, you don't hear that often in your position. I just want to say thank you for that today. But back to the presentation. So I know it's lunch is close, so I'm going to make this short and sweet, give you a small history of myself, why I'm involved with this program, and why I think it's so important for the state of Kentucky, not just Eastern Kentucky, but the state of Kentucky. When you're looking at, I'm also, back when I was in grade school, I was a recipient of the food stamps back then, the little paper things you pull off, that type of thing. I remember that. Well, I overcame that, or my family overcame that through farming, through Eastern Kentucky, through the college years of my college years. I'm going through this. I'm setting the stage, but it's got a point at the end, okay? But like I said, I grew up on a family farm in southeast Kentucky, rural Kentucky, Mr. Bentley, to where poverty is fairly high. I hate to be those numbers, 50 out of the 50 states. We hate that. And that's why I'm so encouraged here today about this program. This is one of the tools that we got in our toolbox that we can assist the poverty-stricken areas of Kentucky. That's all this is. And it goes back to what Mr. Meredith was saying. I mean, we've got to do something. I'm not saying we've not done anything in the state of Kentucky. You've done a lot of things in the state of Kentucky to help the poverty in Kentucky, but we've got a long way to go. And from my experiences that I've had with these stores and producing produce for 35 years and farming for 35 years, I think we've got an avenue here that's got me excited. And let me give you a history. Like I said, I grew up on a family farm, beef, cattle, tobacco, through the coal industry in Eastern Kentucky. Man, how many more knocks am I going to have to take? We went through the coal. We went through the tobacco downturn. It's tough. It's tough. But I've got to give Eastern Kentucky credit. In my little county of Alza County, it's the best county in the state for high-speed internet. With some of the things that they've done, they've offset tobacco income with telework system. There's some bright lights out there, and you guys have helped with all of them. But we're right now talking to you today to how we can further that progression and move us forward the next 20 years. But like I said, I grew up on a family farm, went through the college years and all that type of thing, grew tobacco, started vegetables when I was in high school. All the time looking for a part-time job, that type of thing. When you got tobacco crops out there, you're looking for supplemental income to supplement your job. You're trying to get your tobacco crop in, you're trying to get it sold, that type of thing. So where's the income coming from? So I watched a lot of people and started growing a few vegetables. No one in the county, I don't think, was really growing vegetables at the time. So I diversified at an early age. But we're going to see how that's going to play an important part here in just a second. But sold to grocery stores, sold roadside, sold off the farm, that type of thing. So that's my involvement at an early age for the last 35 years. I know I'm telling my age, I'm 52, but I mean, we're getting there. But it's got a point. And just a few years ago, through all of my endeavors, I started to give up on farming after dealing with some Save-A-Lot stores. I'm not knocking Save-A-Lot stores at all. That's not what I'm getting at here. It's just the marketing channels, how to get into some of these stores to have your product. We made a contract with, not really a contract, sort of agreement with 8 Save-A-Lot stores in the local area. Deliver produce throughout the summer. Going really better than I expected. A lot better than I expected. Mid-season, what happened? Orders started going down to very few numbers. I get on the phone and call. Well, they've sort of said we can't buy from outside vendors, like Walmart's, all the other ones. It is what that's nothing negative on Save-A-Lot. That's just their system. Went through that, lost $30,000 produce in the field. Bad taste. About went under. It's sort of like the coal industry and the tobacco again, yeah. in a way, honestly. And you got to realize vegetable production is different than soybeans, corn. You take cattle, beef cattle, we've done all that. You don't get a check when you go to the market. You are your market. You got to develop your market. We've got to somehow sustain this in different ways, quality, relationships, that type of things. That's what we've got to create. But where I'm going with that, through all those years and experiences I had, I got a call. a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever it was, from the lady that said, "Will you be interested in supplying some of your produce through some of the local grocery stores, IGAs, that type of thing in Eastern Kentucky?" Oh no, here we go again. You know, and we went through the whole story. She knew the whole story. It was what it was. She said, "This is different." Explain to me how that was different. She talked to me about the Double Dollars program that we test piloted last year through those stores. I've done some research on the IGA institutions. They can purchase outside their chain, that type of thing, outside vendors. May have a chance. Then she explained to me about the Double Dollars. Well, that was meeting two requirements. That was moving more produce and feeding an underserved audience. This may have a chance. So the gambler that farmers are, what do we do? So here we go again. So yes, I'm in. And when we were in, we were in. It's one of those things. And long story short, very successful. Very successful. And it's due to the Double Dollars program, getting me into those stores, being more sustainable. The store owners, talk to them on the way here. They in trouble. They don't think they're going to have enough funding next year to create the demand. Which, that's what we wanted, Senator Meredith. That's what we wanted.
That's where we are.
That's what we wanted. So I'm telling you what my experience is, good and bad. This last one is great, outstanding. That's the reason I'm here today. I'm encouraged with this program. This will work because we have proven that it will work. And several things that we can accomplish with this program. Health. We all know, we've listened all day to the health problems. It is what it is. We've got to consume better product. SNAP-Ed recipients don't have the money to buy good protein sources, good fruit and vegetables. This program allows that. Yes, they're on it. They don't want to be on those subsistences all their life. I didn't. Came out of it. It is what it is. This program has the ability, 10 years, 20 years, that you can hang your hat on. What if we had this program in the state of Kentucky on all the stores? Just the IGA stores, just all the stores. That's hypothetical, but it's possible. It's possible. We can move that 50 mark, Senator Meredith, maybe to 40, maybe to 35. It's going to take time. This is not no quick fix. This system that we're into today is not a quick fix, but we've got to start somewhere like you were talking earlier today.
And that's certainly what interested me in bring this to this committee. And I'm sorry we're going to lose about our entire committee in about 2 minutes, but Kimmy and I have had several conversations about this. Our original intent was maybe we could use tobacco settlement funds, but I understand the Kentucky Department of Agriculture is not interested in doing that. They've got other commitments. So we've talked about other funding sources. One is an appropriation through the budget. Those of us connected with healthcare, even remotely, one of the things we talked about is why not ask our MCOs to step up? The ask is going to be, is it 500,000, 600,000?
Around that.
Around 500,000, 600,000. If we ask each of the MCOs to contribute 100,000, which should reap them benefits because it's going to improve the health of the population, and so that's one opportunity. Again, hate to cut this off, but I know your ask is 600,000. We'll look at different funding sources, but this may be one of the things that we'll have to be a little bit innovative on. But if we don't get it this round, I can assure you that we'll be back in 2 years and do it again. But I'm not saying we can't do it, we won't do it, but I think we need to look at some innovative ways to fund this because, again, it's a dollar-to-dollar match from federal government, and we need to do this. So I appreciate that. Appreciate y'all's presentation. Sorry I didn't give you more time. Just not a very good committee chair, and I get falling behind, and staff looks at me, and they smack me upside the head, but great job. You really did. I appreciate you being here. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us today.
And I'd like to remind everyone, Western Kentucky does have underground coal mining too. I'm from Hopkins County.